Hi, I'm Melissa Krieger with Do Yoga With Me. In today's practice, you'll be learning how to make backbends safe and accessible by engaging your deep core muscles to give you more support. You'll need 2 chunky blocks and something soft to support your knees. There will be a short Savasana at the end, but you're welcome to make it longer. Enjoy. We'll begin lying on our back. You can have your knees bent or your legs straight, your arms rest how they're comfortable. Tuck in the chin a little bit so the back of the neck gets long, and of course you can use head support if you'd like. Your eyes can be opened or closed, taking a little bit of time to settle in. Lengthening out your breath. And as you do so, just noticing how you are today, what your physical body feels like, your mood, your energy level. Just noticing where you're at. And try, I know it's tough sometimes, but try to welcome it all. It's all good. Take a few more deep breaths. We'll start to shift the breath a little bit to help wake up our deep core. So it's that extended exhale, blowing the breath all the way out. Noticing how the inhale comes in really easily when you blow the breath all the way out like that. And remembering that when you do exhale all the way out, we will kick into a reflex that engages pelvic floor muscles and abdominal muscles. So the deep core is what I refer to it as. And then if you're able to, a little bit more on top of this, exhaling all the way out. And can you pull up at your pelvic floor, the muscles at the base of the pelvis? Could you draw back at your low belly, a couple inches below your belly button? Taking a big breath in, letting everything open and expand. And then big exhale again, blowing the breath all the way out. And if you can, pulling back at the low belly, pulling up at the pelvic floor. Start to add some movement. Bend your knees so your feet are flat on the floor and your kneecaps point right up towards the ceiling. And you might even just look at your legs, see what's happening there with your knees. Your knees might want to knock in or they may want to knock out. The cue, you could pretend like there's a block in between your knees and you're giving it a bit of a squeeze. And at the same time, like there's a strap looped around your thighs and you're kind of pushing against it. So there is some tension in the legs. Bring your arms down beside you. Take a big exhale, wake up your core, press your feet down, and lift your hips up. And then lower back down again. So this is going to get progressively more challenging. Walk your feet out a little further, just a couple inches, more towards the top of the mat. And again, push the feet down, lift the hips up, and lower back down again. Keep doing this. Keep walking the feet out and lifting lowering the hips, and you'll get to this point where it's really difficult. Your hamstrings are working a lot. You might also get to the point where your toes maybe can't connect on the floor anymore. Maybe it's just the heels. That's fine. Get to a place that it's pretty tough and then do a few more repetitions there. And still with that kind of activity through the legs so the kneecaps can point right up to the ceiling. So this is not only a back bend, a gentle back extension, a bridge, but we're also using it as an exercise just to fire up the lower body a little bit more. Now walking the feet back in, same kind of idea, maybe take 4 or 5 repetitions to eventually come back to that starting position. So if you practice with me, you know that usually when we do bridges, I'm having you do them more as an exercise. And that I encourage you not to have your heels super close because I want your hamstrings to work a little harder. All right, well done. Lower the hips back down again. You may want to draw your knees in towards your chest. You can hold on where you like. You might stay put or maybe rock or shift a little bit from side to side. And bring your feet down to the ground. Hold on to the back of your right thigh. And then a few times, just stretching and bending that leg. So easing into the back of the legs where we were just getting some good work in there. Keep the leg up now. Move your foot a little bit, pointing and flexing. Still with those big inhales, long exhales. And then bend that knee, please, crossing your ankle over your thigh. Here's your glute stretch. This is enough, potentially, or that back foot could slide in closer. Pick up, or you might reach all the way through, maybe reaching for that left thigh. So back bends can be a little bit scary, I find, and they can be almost not accessible for everybody. So what I'm working with in this program is to make them more accessible for everybody, safer, a little bit more easier to understand, I guess. I'm giving you a few little tips and showing you there's lots of different kinds of back bends. Please change legs so you're drawing that other knee into your chest. Hold onto the back of the thigh and then stretch and bend that leg a few times. Even the name, like back bend, sounds scary, right? They're back extensions. You are extending your spine. You're opening through the chest and shoulders. They're really lovely poses. I tend to practice and teach more modified, more gentle back bends, and that's what I'm going to show you today in this program. Keep that leg up, please, and then point and flex that foot a few times. There's lots of different back bends. The ones we'll primarily do are when we're lying on our backs and lifting up our hips like we just did. And then also lots of back bends from our belly. Go ahead and bend that knee, please. Cross the ankle over the thigh. Find out where you need to be on this side. Maybe reaching all the way through, maybe not. And although the focus will be primarily on back bends, I'll still be getting you a little bit moving in all the other directions, twisting, side stretching, forward folding, a little bit of balance. Round of breath. Release your legs. Come up towards all fours, however you want to get there, rolling to your side or rocking up and down a few times. Start to move into cat-cow curls and notice that this is a back bend. You're arching your back, you're looking a little forward, maybe even up, back bending. And then exhaling, dropping your head, pushing the mid back up towards the sky. You're rounding, you're in this forward fold. Come back into that cow pose, a little bit of a back bend, a little bit of an arch, and then round. That a few more times. Notice in all fours that it feels a little different to wake up through the deep core. That's really normal. Let's move side to side here. So turning back, looking towards your feet. Maybe that's an exhale. Pull back through to center. Check, and out the other side. A couple times each way. And come back through to center. Making your way onto your stomach. It doesn't need to be anything in particular, just coming down. So what I find really interesting about being on our bellies is that this is a back bend. Me being flat on my stomach is an extension through my spine. Super gentle, super accessible. If any of the back bends on our belly that I show you today don't work, come to this. You are back bending, you're extending the spine. You might add a little bit more with what's called a locust pose. You can stretch your arms back behind you. Your legs are straight and strong, and maybe the feet are a little bit wider. And then low belly's pulling back, pelvic floor is drawing up. Lift your chest, arms, and legs away from the floor. And lower back down again. So some strength building through the back of our body. Do that one more time. And lower back down again. Bring your forearms down underneath you. I just want to wake up through the midsection a little bit more. When we're doing back bends, our backs are a little bit vulnerable. So having a bit more support, we found a bit more strength through our bridges, now through our planks. Just reminding these deep core muscles that we need them for our practice today. Tuck your toes under. You might have a plank pose with the knees on the floor. That works really well. Or you might lift up your knees. So you're in this long line from the heels to the head. You're working against gravity to suck back on your low belly. Pull up on your pelvic floor. Maybe a little bit of a shake. Take one more round of breath. And then lower down into a child's pose. So the knees can come underneath you. Maybe a little bit wider. Hips back. Forehead down to the mat or the hands to rest. Either stay down here in child's pose or make your way up towards downward dog. If you're going to downward dog, hands might go a little wider, a little bit further forward. Tucking the toes under, lifting up the knees, press the hips back. Downward dog, it could be nice to stay still, or movement can feel interesting. I like to walk my dog, bending one knee at a time, so my hips sway a little bit from side to side. Round a breath. Come on up to a standing forward fold, so feet underneath you. Lengthen the spine, breathe in. Fold back down again. And then you can roll yourself up, maybe your hands walking up your legs. The head will be the last thing to come up, and maybe the shoulders want to roll back a bit or the arms want to circle back. So we can also come into those back bending, those extending shapes in some of our standing poses. We'll play with some of those. Come up towards the top of the mat. Have a little bit of space in between your feet. You might bring your hands to your hips or your waist. Shift your weight over towards your left foot. Bring your right knee up. Take a round of breath, sneaky little balance. Step back for warrior two. That back foot's about parallel to the short side of the mat, bending into the front knee, stretching your arms front and back. While we're here, the front knee in warrior two tends to want to drop in. We want that hip, that knee to open out to the side. So a way you can kind of get that strength from the outer thigh is if you take your front hand and rest it on your front thigh and look at your knee, and push your thigh against your hand and see your knee more open towards the baby toe side, externally rotating. That's where we want to be. So try to maintain that feeling. Stretch your arms front and back. Round of breath. Come into a reverse warrior. So this is a back bend. Your back hand drops to your thigh. Your front palm flips up. And then that front arm can stretch up to the sky. So this is more kind of straight up and down, and this variation works really well. Or you might take a big exhale, wake up through the deep core, and then that back hand might slide down a little further, and maybe you lean back a little bit more. With this pose, you can look wherever you want. It's often taught up, and that's fine. You could also look forward, to the side, down, whatever your preference. Round a breath. Pull back in again towards warrior two. So back to the middle, head and heart and hips all in the same line. And then extended side angle. Lean forward, bend your front arm so it rests lightly on your thigh. Roll your torso open. Back arm might stay down, fingers to the ceiling, or maybe you're sweeping that arm down and around. So this pose, although it's not a back bend, you could make it a little back bendy by leaning back slightly, pretending there's a wall behind you. Use your tricks from your balance, finding a stationary point to focus on, using that strong, sharp exhale, and trying to connect your feet really well into the floor, relaxing that front foot. Round of breath. Push your feet down into the ground. Pull back up again to warrior two. Straighten your front leg, drop your arms, step your back foot forward. Maybe a bit of a shakeout. Second side, a little bit of space in between your feet. Maybe the hands come to the hips. Shifting your weight into your right foot. Lift up your left knee. Round a breath, sneaky balance. You might want a stationary point here. And then big step back. Remember from the last side that external rotation, knee is opening out to the side, upper thigh, hip is pretty active for that. Arms stretch front and back. You notice a lot of students in this shape, everyone wants to kind of lean forward on this one, but you want the head, heart, hips all in the same line. And you can tell if you look down and you see like your chest, your belly, you're probably in the right place. If you look down and you're seeing more your thigh, you're probably leaning a little forward. Round a breath. Reverse warrior, backhand to your thigh, front palm flips up, that arm stretches up. Big exhale, wake up your core, maybe leaning back a bit more of a back bend, maybe not. Just feeling that front knee is still opening out to the side. I notice that a lot, that the front knee wants to fall in at this point when you can't see it anymore. But remember, you have that strength to open the knee up. Round a breath. Come back into the center and then lean forward. Bend your front arm so it rests on your thigh. This really depends on your shoulder, right? With what your back arm does. Arm can hang down, up or around and over. Make it a little back bendy. 2 more breaths. Push down, come back up again. Drop your arms, straighten your legs, step your back foot forward. Shake it out a bit. Connect your feet into the floor, hands to prayer, breathe in. Exhale, drop your hands down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Come halfway up for your flat back. Fold down, hands to the floor. Step or lunge or hop back to high plank, back to the top of that push-up. Breathe in. Maybe lower your knees down first, and then exhale to lower yourself down. So back to that belly down back bend. You could stay here on your belly, or you might extend the upper spine a little bit more. You could bring your hands into a fist, stack them on top of each other. Rest your chin on your hands. So a bit of a back bend here. If you wanted a little bit more, you could bring your forearms down to the ground. Elbows underneath the shoulders. A little bit more height. You can play around with your legs. I just tend to like my feet a little bit wider apart in these shapes. You might have your legs side by side, whatever's the most appropriate. There's one more you could go into. You could turn your forearms, your hands out to the sides. Push your hands firmly into the floor and then push down and press up. So lifting the spine a little higher. This is one of our bigger back bends that we're doing today. If it's not a good fit, please go ahead and come back down to your forearms or down to your fists. Take a round of breath. Lower down. And then pressing back towards child's pose. It's a counter pose, so it can feel really nice after back bending. Resting the arms however they feel comfortable. Now the knees could go a little bit closer together, which makes your back round a bit more. But if that's not a great fit, you can go wide again. Take 3 breaths. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders to press yourself back up again. We'll use your props now. I would suggest using something soft like a blanket to support the knee that will be down. And then the 2 chunky blocks will be really helpful just to give a little bit more height to the arms. Set up this lunge so that your left knee is back and supported. and your right leg is the forward leg. And the blocks have different heights, right? Like this is the medium height, there's a high height, there's a low height. Find what you need, and the blocks also move, so they're not stuck in that one place. So here's your lunge, and then you'll be pushing back to your hamstring stretch. Sometimes the foot needs to kind of scoot a little bit more forward. So move through this a couple of times, taking that lunge and hamstring stretch. Blocks can move, heights can change. If it doesn't feel like there's enough space with the leg in the middle and one hand on either side, you could switch and you could walk that front foot to its own side and both hands could come into the middle with the blocks. Go for one more, please. So this is subtle, but it's a little bit of a back bending motion when you're coming into that lunge, and then we'll change that a little bit more. Bring the blocks to the inside edge of your front foot or your hands. Move that front foot over towards its own side and turn your toes out. So the toes are kind of hanging off towards the side of my mat. I'm getting into the back of my legs first. This is pretty intense to stretch the front of your thighs and to strengthen the back of the thighs. I notice that some students' hamstrings cramp. If that happens, just take a break. You'll bend your back knee so that your back heel will come closer to your backside. So back knee bends, heel comes closer to your backside. Go for one. And again, last one. Bringing the shoulder and a little bit of a twist into it, you'll be taking your right hand or your inside hand. You'll stretch that arm up and around, look to your back foot, stretch that arm up and forward. So making it a little bit more of an extension, reaching up and over, quite a big stretch, up and forward. Last time, up and around, up and forward. So now we'll put both of those movements together. And I don't mean that you need to like touch the foot. Your hand doesn't need to be anywhere near it. It's just you're doing both things at the same time. So front arm stretches over as back knee bends, looking towards your back foot. And release. Again. Last time. Let it go. Whew. Come back into that hamstring stretch. So that foot might walk back into the center and then pressing back to that hamstring stretch. Take a couple breaths here. So pretty big sequence, but a nice one because it helps to open through the front of the body, the shoulders, the thighs, the hips where we tend to be tight. And then it's also strengthening through the back of the legs, the hamstrings where we tend to be weak. Round of breath. Change to the other side. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. You're just switching 5 or so times, moving from the lunge in the front to the hamstring stretch. Everything moves if necessary. The blocks move, the height changes, whatever you need. Let the spine move a little bit more in this one. So when you come forward, chest lifts a little bit. And then when you drop to that hamstring stretch, chest lowers down a little bit. Forward and back. Last one. Come back into that lunge and bring both hands to the inside of your front foot. Move that front foot over towards its own side. Have the blocks however you need them, starting with your hamstring. So that back knee bends, heel comes closer towards your backside. Do that 2 more times. Just the arm, so it'll be the left hand, the inside hand. That arm will stretch up and around. Look to your back foot. Up and forward. Again. Last time. Doing it both at the same time, not necessarily to be anywhere near your foot. It doesn't matter, I promise. Up and over, back leg bends. Release it. Again. Last time. Let it go. One more hamstring stretch. So wiggle that front foot in and press back to your hamstring stretch. Couple of breaths. Come forward again, and then make your way out of it. Making your way onto your back, we'll move a little bit more before we rest. You can always use that, whatever soft support you had for your knee as head support, if that feels like a good fit. When you come onto your back, have your chin a little bit tucked in. And then it might feel good to kind of close everything up, like drawing the knees in towards the chest. Might have your hands on your knees, circle your knees. Whatever direction you like, I'm going out and away from each other, but you might like the legs moving in the same direction. Go both ways. Bring your feet down to the floor. You can tee your arms out to the side with your palms face up or down. Shift or bump your hips a little bit towards the left. And then pick up your feet and let your knees drop down towards the right. And if the floor feels too far away, use whatever support you need. Chin can be a little bit tucked in. You might look to your knees, the ceiling, or away from your knees. And look back up again. Push your arms down into the ground. Bring your legs back through to center. Even out your hips. Shifting a little bit to the right. Drop the knees down to the left. Support if needed. And breathe. Look back up again. Push your arms down, bring your legs back through to center. There is also a whole bunch of supported bridging poses that we can work with. So let's play with one of those. You can grab your prop, your block, push your feet down and lift your hips up. Slide that prop underneath your pelvis. And then you can stay just like this. The feet can be flat on the floor. Or depending on how it feels for your hips, you might explore maybe one leg stretches out at a time. I like this version, one leg at a time for a few breaths. Sometimes both legs at the same time is okay. Sometimes it's too much. If you're working one leg, go ahead and switch. So I've got this little bit of a lift in my pelvis, making this a little bit of a back bend and focusing a bit more on this nice stretch through the front of the hips because I am pressed a little away from the floor. Round a breath. Bring that foot back in. We'll just finish our practice with a really gentle upside down pose, waterfall pose. The knees can come in, feet off the floor, and then the legs can stretch up into the air. And the block is meant to be positioned in a way that it makes it relatively easy for your legs to stay up. But if that feels like it's not the case, you can move the block a little bit farther away. The legs could stay still, or there could be some movement. Maybe the feet want to move a bit. Maybe the legs want to move a little bit. Generally, in all the practices that I practice myself and that I teach, I try to also figure out a way to get upside down. And I tend to keep my upside down poses pretty conservative. I'm not a shoulder stand or a headstand person. So this is a really accessible upside down pose for most students. Downward dog and standing forward folds are also upside down poses. So they're pretty subtle, but that is definitely part of a well-rounded practice is getting a little bit upside down if possible. Bring your feet down to the floor, please. Push your feet down, lift your hips up, slide that prop out. Coming to rest in a short Shavasana, but remember, you are welcome to stay here longer. You can just ignore me. You're resting however your body's comfortable, grabbing any layers that you need. Let the breath go, let the core go. If you want to rest longer, please ignore me and stay here as long as you like. If you're okay to start moving again, you might wiggle your fingers and your toes. Maybe nod the head from side to side. Go for a big stretch. You can make your way over towards one side. Maybe hang out there a little longer. And eventually pressing up to any comfortable seated position. And close your eyes. Bring your hands to prayer. Bow your head down. Notice how you feel. Thank yourself for showing up. Thank your body for all its hard work. Open your eyes. Lift your gaze. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste.